What is your why? If you've been in circles that talk about business or entrepreneurship for any length of time, you have probably heard the question, what is your why? And what that question means is, why are you going into business? And you might even hear it stated that if you have a strong enough why, you can face any how. Like, how am I going to get the money? How am I going to get the customers? How am I going to make sure that this succeeds and doesn't fail, and so on? So the why is important because when difficult times come and you remember your why, a lot of times you can push through those difficulties and you can continue to give your all to this business, to this endeavor, this entrepreneurship. But what is your why is not just for business. One of the interesting things about goal setting is that sometimes people set goals and then they reach those goals and they realize that they don't get the experience that they expected from the goal because what they wanted from the goal actually wasn't the goal itself. It was a certain feeling. Maybe it was a feeling of accomplishment or a feeling of security or pride or connection. And when they get that goal, it doesn't happen. That feeling doesn't come. And so really that feeling was the goal, not the actual thing that they did. And that's one reason why sometimes people will say, when you're setting a goal, ask yourself why you want it, and then ask yourself why a bunch of times until you get down to that deep core feeling that you really want, that you're really looking for, that really is what matters to you. I think this is so important because when I was growing up, I was told certain messages like, go to college, get a job, get married, have kids, you'll be happy. Now, for me, happiness was really important because I grew up in kind of a distant family. My extended family was really close and loving, but my parents were kind of cold and didn't have a good relationship with each other, didn't really have a good relationship with me. So the idea of being happy, having a happy family, man, that was like the Holy Grail. That was so important to me. And so when I heard that, go to college, get a job, get married, have kids, you'll be happy, that made me super motivated to do all those things. And then that happiness in the marriage, my first marriage and my second marriage, was very fleeting. The marriages came with a lot of work, with a lot of problems, with a lot of hurt and disappointment and strife and just a lot of devastation, a lot of toxicity. And so it wasn't until I was 43 that I sat down and said, okay, what do I really feel could make me happy? I tried it their way and it didn't work. And I came up with all kinds of things. And I tried those things, like following my dreams. Check, that worked. Developing really a strong support system. Yeah, that worked. Trying new things in new places and having a lot of variety in my life. That worked. I mean, I could just list thing after thing after thing after thing. Having really amazing spiritual experiences that didn't necessarily have to do anything with the church. That worked. And so what I learned is that happiness for me, fulfillment for me, peace for me, had nothing to do with their romantic relationship. There were so many other ways, better ways, much more reliable ways to find those things than a romantic relationship. And I think a lot of people, a lot of women have especially found that out. They were told by society that being a wife, being a mother was the way to get their goals met, was the way to fulfillment. And they realized that that was not the case for a lot of them. And so they had to go on their own personal self-healing journey, their own personal self-development journey, their own personal self-discovery journey to figure out what was their why. Why did they get married? Why did they have kids? And when they realized it was for happiness or fulfillment or purpose, they realized there were other ways to get happiness, fulfillment, and purpose. Other ways to have a sense of meaning, other ways to feel like they had a legacy, many other ways. And it didn't mean that they didn't love their kids or their spouse. It meant that society telling them there was only one way to do it was a lie. Same thing with spirituality. So there are some religions that say there's only one way to spirituality, to a connection with God. And many people have found that is not true. There are some people who find their connection to God in nature, in prayer, in breath work, in meditation, in stillness. There are so many different things, and church may not be one of them. Tithing may not be one of them. Believing the Bible, reading the Bible may not be one of them. So I would just like to say, or even to ask, what is your why? Why are you doing the things that you're doing? Why are you believing the things that you're believing? And maybe for you to ask, is the way that society told you that you have to do something working for you? And if not, try to come up with a different way. Try to seek other ways. Because our programming, some of it was really toxic. May you walk in Zennurgy. What is your why?